listening to Cooper Talk.
Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guest. And I got to tell you something, people. Last Thursday, Joanne's mom called and asked us if we wanted to go to the beach for the weekend on a house right on the beach. So I said, of course I want to go, and plus, you know me, if it's free, I'm there. But I haven't been to the Jersey Shore in like 2 years. And I know a lot of people got disillusioned because they saw the show on MTV, but it's so different, and it was so relaxing, and people are so nice, and everything moves slow. And if you're ever in the area, do me a favor, go to the beach down here. Anyway, we have a great show today. We have a musician who was a groundbreaker in her first band. She has a great new album coming out with another pretty much groundbreaker, her and Brie Darling, and she's been an actor. And what I'm going to ask her first about is she's a wood carver, and my guest is Cherie Currie. How you doing, Cherie?
Hey, Cooper, thanks for having me.
Now, I got to tell you, I was doing my research, and I found a video of you with this dog that you I guess you use a chainsaw to cut, and it's a big ass dog, and you're going to paint it, and you showed a picture of the dog, and it looked just like it. How did you get into chainsaw wood carving? Because I've never met anybody who's done that.
Well, you know, it was kind of a fluke. I was a relief carver at the time. I started out as a sketch artist. I started painting, and then the next step for me was to carve. So I was doing relief carving, which is two-dimensional carving on tabletops, wall hangings, that kind of thing, and staining and painting them. And I just happened to be going to Malibu, and I was on Cane and Dune Road and passed a couple of guys chainsaw carving at the side of the road at the Malibu Mountain Gallery, and I could not get it out of my head. So every morning that voice would say, you got to go back. Every night, you got to go back. So I did go back a couple weeks later with some of my artwork. And I walked into the gallery, and I saw these beautiful mermaids and dolphins and seals and, of course, the bears and raccoons. And this voice just said, you can do this. So I talked to the owner, Rio Dijonay is his name, and he saw my artwork, and he said that he would take me on and teach me how to carve. But the thing is, I mean, he showed me how to not kill myself with the saw. But otherwise, you've got to have the vision, and because it's not as easy as people think. But I've been doing it now. It's pushing 19 years.
Oh, I don't think it's easy. I mean, I'm fascinated because, you know, my friend, he had to cut down a tree in his backyard, and he was like, "Do you want to help?" And I'm like, "No, man, I suck at that." I think it's a fascinating talent, and it's just, I mean, how do you? The dog I saw was so intrinsic. It was so good. I mean, it must be so hard to use that big thing, that big chainsaw, to get that fine detail.
Well, I've got a bunch of different size saws. The smallest one is the one that I use to detail, but I also use a Dremel tool and sanders as well to get really the eyelids and you know, the nose and, you know, the fine detail. But it is about 98% chainsaw, and then just the little fine stuff that I do otherwise. But it took me a long time to trust myself to do detail work. But you know, when you've been doing it as long as I have, it's just second nature to me now.
Well, you've also been playing music for a long time, and I got to ask you, I want to find out more about when you were with the Runaways, but your new album's coming out. I still call them albums, and it's called The Motivator, and it's with Brie Darling, who's a 70s icon and drumming for Fanny. How did you guys meet, and how did you decide to come to this collaboration? Because I heard you guys didn't meet till like a few years ago.
Yeah, and by the way, I call them albums too. So, but I was asked to guest on their Fanny Walks the Earth album. And a lot of girls from the Go-Go's, the Bangles, a lot of course, the girls from Fanny, any gal that had ever made a splash in the business was there at this studio, Clear Lake Studio, in Burbank. And I had listened to the record beforehand, and I just fell in love with Brie's voice. I just thought, and her songwriting, I thought she was just fantastic. And you know what? I always voice that. If I meet someone that I just absolutely think is amazing, I tell them so. I think more people need to do that, especially women. But we just hit it off, and I kind of stepped out a little bit, doing the background vocals with all the girls, and I guess I got noticed by her husband, Dave Darling, who is a 6-time Grammy-nominated producer. Rightfully so. He should get a Grammy. He's so talented. And they asked me to go in privately to another studio and do a little bit more work, which I did. And that's when Dave said, you know, we're going to make a record together one day. And I was like, yeah, sure. But next thing I knew, they had me come into their studio to do a Rolling Stones tune. And like a take or two, I was done. And then Brie and I started talking about continuing this. And the thing is that my house was going up for sale. I was in escrow for some land up north. I was leaving this business. I mean, gone. Build a couple cabins and carve, you know, and enjoy my life. And nothing could have brought me back to this business but Brie Darling and her husband, because I just was so impressed with the talent that this duo has. And I just loved Brie. We just became really great friends, and we just had a great time making this record. Easiest record I've ever made.
Well, I know on the record, I believe you do 9 covers, but you do some originals. How do you choose what cover you're going to do? Because, I mean, you're a musician, and I love music. There's so many great songs out there, just so much great music. And to narrow it down, and also, when you do a cover, you're sort of paying tribute to that person, even though you want to do it in your own style. How did you go through the songs you guys were going to play, and did you both have to agree on them?
Oh, wow. Well, yeah. I think that there was about 40 that the three of us had thrown into the hat, including Kirk, who is the president of Blue Alarm Records. And it was tough because, of course, we didn't want to sound like some karaoke album. You know, it had to be different. And, you know, so we whittled it down with the four of us, really, with Kirk and David, Brie, and myself. It was hard because we had to let go of a lot of songs that we really loved as well. But knowing what Dave could do with them, just when you listen to the Motivator, which to me is just absolutely brilliantly done and produced by Dave Darling, you listen to the original, it's a big difference, and in a very good way. And so, you know, we had to depend on Dave's vision, because he was the arranger and producer, and some of the songs, even like "Give Me Some Truth," Lennon's "Give Me Some Truth," I wasn't sold. I never even heard that song, to be honest with you, before. And then to hear his take on the music and the arrangement, and Brie's basically scratch vocal on it, I just said, wow, this is done. This is great. And you know, I'm so happy with each and every one of those remakes, because they're special. There's something different about them. Of course, He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother, which I threw in the hat because my twin sister Marie had wanted me to record that song ever since I did Air That I Breathe on the Blackheart record from the Hollies. And but I kept hearing this really cool message that Brie would sing, which I wrote for our homeless vets, and it just worked beautifully in that song. So, you know, each song has something uniquely special about it, and I'm very proud of this record. Honestly, I am.
Now, you love her voice. She loves your voice. How is it when you sing together? Do you have to really? Is it just natural to singing together, or you have to work on one not overpowering the other?
Oh, no. Well, you know, it's so funny. Speaking of the Motivator, David decided that I was going to sing that song. And Brie, since they live together and they've got a studio there, she would always go in to lay down a scratch vocal on the song. But Dave was sure that this was a song for me to do. That was kind of basically, the idea was that I would back her, she would do some songs lead, and she would back me when I did leads, maybe one, maybe two duets. But I heard that as a complete duet. David argued with me about it, but I said, just put in her scratch in that second verse, and then us singing together in the choruses. And he did, and he sat back and he goes, oh, this is great. And Brie is such a team player because she expected to come in just to listen to my lead throughout the song. And the look on her face when she came in on that second verse was just priceless. And that started the momentum of us doing the majority of all the songs as a duet because our voices blend greatly together. And what Brie goes for is a little different from what I go for as far as harmonies, so on and so forth. And we just sound great together, and that was my point, is that, we are better together than we are not. So that kind of set the pace for the record being mainly duets.
Now, how did you find the people to back up the play in the band? I mean, it's so different now how studios are compared to, years ago. But how did you find the musicians? And when you go on tour, if you do, how will you find the musicians?
Well, Dave played the majority of the music. Of course, Brie played drums. Her sister played drums. But I brought in Dave Schultz, who is just a phenomenal performer, amazing keyboard player, has worked and is currently going to go on tour in August with Berlin. He's toured with the Goo Goo Dolls. He and I are very good friends, an amazing singer as well. And I brought him in and blew Dave's mind. And he's been working constantly with all the other albums that Dave Darling is doing at the moment. And we asked Dave Schultz to be our band leader. So we are now in the process of putting together a band while Dave Schultz is on tour with Berlin and getting ready to hit the road in the fall.
Now, when's the last time you were on the road?
I toured a lot. Last tour I did was about Australia. I think that was 3 years ago.
Now, has it changed? Because it's so funny. I've noticed, like, I go to a lot of concerts, and it used to be people held up a lighter. Now they hold up the phone, with the app of the lighter, and it's just not the same to me. But how are you?
They actually just hold up their cell phones and record the show.
Right, that's the worst. I always hate that because it's always some person in front of me recording the show, and they're never be quality recording.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they ban a lot of people from bringing their phones into these things, people that want to keep control of that. To me, I don't care. You know what? Unfortunately, we have to kind of bend with the times here, and everyone has iPhones, and everyone records, and it just happens to be daily life for these younger folks, and some older folks, too, that do it. But, that kind of stuff doesn't bother me personally.
Well, have audiences changed over the years, do you feel?
Well, we've all grown older. I mean, a lot of the people that have come to see me, because I did 3 U.S. tours, I did a UK tour, and then I did New Zealand and Australia. A lot of them are people that are my age that come to the shows, but a lot of younger people as well because of the Runaways movie. The resurgence of fans from that. But you know what? I mean, I really can't tell you if they've changed much. I think people, the younger people have changed an awful lot as far as respecting other people, so on and so forth. I mean, and I think that's social media and all that kind of thing. When we were young, it was just all so magical. We didn't get into politics and all that stuff when we were kids. We just enjoyed life. We enjoyed being able to watch, 5 stations on the TV and, not have hundreds. Well, it's just everything. Yeah, I'm just so glad I grew up back in those great times, where Mayberry was like the coolest show on television,
Well,
or Lost in Space.
You know what fascinates?
Yeah, it's changed. I'm so glad. I mean, I've got a 28-year-old son, and I can't even imagine growing up today. I feel a little sorry for people that don't know what it was like when I was growing up in the 60s.
Well, what fascinates me also is, when we were growing up, if you're going to meet your friends, they'd say, hey, we're going to be at this place at 11:30. And you went there, and they were always there. And now people text each other that they're going to be somewhere, and they flake. That's what's crazy for me, that we always knew people would be there, and we couldn't depend on telling someone we're going to be late or anything like that. That's what I loved about growing up in the era.
Oh, yeah, I miss the phone calls, the texts. I hate the text, which is like the main way my son and I communicate, unfortunately, is through text. We do talk to each other every few days, but it's just, it's amazing that how far advanced we've become in, to me, what a very short period of time. I understand what you're saying. I just, to me, it's a bit confusing, and I feel bad because there's really,
yeah. Now, when did you start playing music? Because you were at the Runaways at the age of 15. I know I read something that you were supposed to be on My Three Sons, but what made you start to gravitate towards the entertainment business as a youngster?
Was one single concert, my very first concert at the Universal Amphitheater, and it was David Bowie's Diamond Dogs tour. And I saw him come out on stage, and just it was like the skies opened. I was a really shy surfer chick with long hair, and I just saw him, and it just hit me like a bolt of lightning, and I said, that is what I want to do. And little did I know that within 2 years I've already signed a record deal and was, I'd never performed on a stage with anyone before. I'd sit with my dad on, my twin sister Marie and I on his knee, and we'd sing at the Kiwanis Club when we were kids, or at a corn stand down on Balboa Boulevard in the San Fernando Valley. There used to be corn stands, and my dad would sit us up on the stand there, and we'd sing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Those are the memories I have. But of course I grew up with Dean Martin and because my dad sounded so much like Dean Martin. So we sang a lot of Dean Martin songs. It was just a really wonderful, typical 60s growing up in the San Fernando Valley type of family.
Now, how did you find about auditioning for the Runaways? How did that happen? Because it must, as you said, you were shy. It must be very, pressure filled because you're young and you're going for this audition. And it's, did you know it was going to be an all-female band?
Well, I was shy when I walked into the David Bowie concert, but I started this metamorphosis. Actually, I was raped when I was very young, when I was 14, just about ready to turn 15. My twin sister's boyfriend, who was very much older than her, was totally enamored with me because my twin sister had said that I was a virgin. I guess he had a thing for virgins. So that really threw me into a dark place. And I cut my hair off into a David Bowie type of a thing, and I was really acting out my anger and rage towards what had happened to me. So by the time I was at the Sugar Shack one evening, and I had my shag haircut that I could spike up, to look like David Bowie. I actually won a talent show pretending to be him on stage for 1984, that song. And I basically in school had started this whole club with the nerds. Anyone that picked on these kids, I would unleash holy hell on them. I was so angry. I met Kim and Joan Jett at the Sugar Shack, which was an under 18 club. You had to prove you were under 21 club to get in. And Kim had come in with Joan, and he was recruiting people to audition for the Runaways. And of course, I'd heard through Rodney Bingenheimer's show and all that there was this band, the Runaways, an all-girl teenage band. So I was very excited to audition, and I did. And in fact, that's how Cherry Bomb was written. Is I went to Carrie Crome's garage where they were auditioning me, and I had learned Suzi Quatro's version of Fever, which was more slow-paced, but the girls kind of were a little upset about that. They wanted to rock out, so Kim and Joan walked into the house, and we waited about 20 minutes, and Kim had written this song, Cherry Bomb, for me. And that's what I auditioned to.
Now, how long till you know that you got the job as the singer?
I was told right then. After I had auditioned, sang Cherry Bomb a few times, they made me sit outside. My older sister, Sandra Currie, was with me, made me sit, and I think a half an hour later they walked back into the garage and they said, "Welcome to the Runaways."
Now, after they hired you, did you immediately go into the studio, or what was the whole process of recording your albums?
Well, we were rehearsing in a trailer, believe it or not, like a mobile home, empty trailer in Studio City, and Kim brought in the president of Mercury Records, and I'll never forget, we had been rehearsing for a couple of weeks, different songs, and I'll never forget him turning to Kim and nodding, and we were offered a deal. And so this is just like a couple weeks after I joined the band, maybe 4 weeks, because we had to get a bass player as well. And that's where Jackie came in. And so immediately that we got the deal, we went in the studio, and before we knew it, we had our very first U.S. tour, which was months long. I'd never been away from home, and it was a whirlwind, I'll tell you that. Scary, but exciting at the same time.
Well, it's funny because you were so young. I mean, most of us at that age are in high school, maybe starting our first summer job. I mean, it must be a little bit overwhelming. But how were you touring? Were you in a bus? Were you in a van? I mean, how were you guys getting around? And were you getting along with the other band members at that point? Because you were all young, and I'm sure it was a lot of time, all of your first time on the road. What was that like?
Well, our first tour, we were all picked up in an old motorhome, which the guy, our driver and roadie, was doing cocaine the whole time driving. We drove directly to Cleveland. That was like a 4-day drive. It was a little scary, and I'll never forget, as soon as we got into the Mojave Desert, I'd never been away from my family before, so I just got this horrible tinge of homesickness, and I thought, oh my God, I can't do this. And it was a real physical pain and fear of being away from I'd never been out of state. You know what I mean? And Lita turned around and I said, Lita, I'm homesick. I don't think I could do this. And she goes, I'm homesick too, but when I come back, I want to be somebody. And her saying that to me, it was like, boom, the switch. And I never felt homesickness again until Europe. But yeah, we were gone for a long time, and every time we thought we were going home, there was another show booked. So it was months we were on tour, that first tour. And my parents had a divorce, so my mom had remarried and moved to Indonesia with my brother. My sister and I were living with my aunt and my father and my grandmother in Reseda in a 3-bedroom house. So, I mean, I had a lot of support from my family, my dad and my aunt and my grandmother. I felt very supported, so that was really good. And they let me go. And, being a mother myself now, I don't know how that even happened, because I know with my son, he was offered a tour at 16, and I said, only if I'm coming with you.
The chaperone.
How would you like your... Yeah, it was like,
in that first tour, how did crowds take to you guys? Because, as I said, it was something different. You know, people weren't used to seeing an all-female rock band, and unfortunately, we live in a country that, to this day, people don't accept certain things, which is very weird. But how did the crowds take to you?
Really great. Out the gate, it was fantastic. I mean, the record had they pushed that record out quick, and we had a lot of support. Record stores, Peaches, Tower, a lot of stores really rallied behind the record, and all I know is we left playing, the Starwood, and when we came back, we were headlining the Santa Monica Civic Center with Cheap Trick opening up for us. So that's a big span, and I hadn't seen my family, and I think it was at least 3 months. And to come back, and that's when I saw my family for the first time, was in the audience at the Santa Monica Civic. So that's a big jump in a matter of months.
Now, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. I mean, we had acquired a huge following because we played every dive there was in every state in the United States, and then we played some great shows too, Cleveland and Detroit, Chicago, and it was just, people were obviously ready. The fans were ready for us. The critics, not so much. And the bands that we were playing with, not Cheap Trick or Tom Petty, they were very supportive, but a lot of the bands weren't ready for us either, who we'd opened for on tour. But I think it was time for the change, We were still a little bit ahead of our time, unfortunately. Kim went to his grave believing that had I stayed for one more record that we would have had some major success. But that just wasn't in the cards.
Now, how are you growing as a lead singer? You leave, and you're playing dive bars, and you come back, and you're playing the Santa Monica Civic Center, and, people focus on the lead singer a lot. How did your showmanship up its game, or was it all just the same, just bigger crowds?
No, I mean, Joan was very shy, too. Joan took on the Susie Quattro persona. I took on the David Bowie persona, and we kind of hid behind that act until we found out who we were, which was a lot of work and a lot of shows. And Kim had hired Kenny Ortega, who was the choreographer for the Tubes. Wonderful guy, of course, huge, guy today, big director, wonderful guy that choreographed our shows. So every move basically was choreographed. There was a lot of costume changes, things like that as well on the second U.S. tour, which was right on the heels of our first U.S. tour. And it just modulated in a way that I didn't expect. But by the time we hit the road the second time, Joan and I, and everyone else was pretty comfortable with our roles. And we lived it, we got better. Anything you do, any practice, you get better. We got better. And so it's great.
Now, what was it like when you went to Europe?
Ooh, boy. That was not my favorite tour. I really hated the weather. The punk movement, now everybody was calling us punk in the USA, but to be honest, we weren't even close to punk. In the UK, that was punk. I mean, I'd never seen people with, safety pins through their faces and the big mohawks, and it just was frightening. And they would throw things at us and spit, and all that kind of stuff was supposed to be, and riot. They would riot. And I really wanted to leave. There was never any sun the whole time we were there, and that was a solid month plus. And I just really, I was not, it was too much of a culture shock for me. And there was one time we played the Apollo Theater in Glasgow, and we ran out into our cars to escape, and they caught us, and they were trying to turn our car over, and the driver gunned it and ran over a kid. So that was just a lot of, just trauma from that tour, because it just was like being on another planet to me. I did not want to go back, I'll tell you that much, and that also played quite a role when I quit, because we were going back, and I was still traumatized from our tour, from our first UK tour, so that also played a part in me quitting.
Now, why did you quit? I mean, was it that you wanted to go on a solo career at that point, or were you just, well, besides being Europe?
No, I did not. No, we weren't getting along, and, in Japan, which was one of our most successful tours, I loved Japan. I did not want to leave. I just loved it there. And Jackie, though, she had slit her wrists, and she'd lost it. She was flown home. We finished our Japan tour as a four-piece, and there was a lot of distrust in the band. No one was getting along, and I just wasn't raised that way. And then, we were doing a photo session for the next record, and Barry Levine was the photographer, and I'd showed up early. I was helping him set up shots and helping him pick backgrounds, so on and so forth. And for some reason, the girls thought I came in late, which, of course, is untrue. But I knew I had to leave because my sister and I shared a car. We just made no money in this band at all. People made a ton of money, but we just didn't. And so I had to get home, and the photo session was to be done at 6:30. Barry knew I had to leave to get the car to my sister so she could go to acting class, and then he decided to throw a tantrum. He broke his camera on the floor when I was leaving, and Lita came and kicked the door in and threatened me and said, "It's either us or your family." And that was enough for me. I just had enough. We didn't care about each other that much anymore. We never spoke. We weren't communicating, and I said I quit, and I walked out, and that was it.
Now,
It just was.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say, do you think if you guys had started maybe 3 years later, if you were 18 or 19, do you think it would have made you more harmonious because you were older then?
No, I think it wouldn't have worked because, again, it was the Runaways. 18, 19, you're not Runaway anymore. Hence the name The Runaways. I think, we definitely helped soften the business for bands like the Go-Go's and the Bangles and bands like that. But I think the problem is that Kim Fowley had this idea in his head, and of course I cared for him the last portion of his life when he was sick with cancer. He actually moved into my home, and I cared for him. And he just felt that if he kept us on edge, that we would be stronger performers. But so he would put out little lies here and there just to keep us on edge with one another, and he realized that was just, when you're that young, and the hormones are going, there's a lot of jealousy, and there was a lot of it was, can you imagine 5 teenage girls being thrown out on a stage in front of thousands of people, and if I was on a cover of a magazine, Lita'd be upset, and it was just a lot of jealousy, and it was just too much after a couple of years, So it just was what it was. We came out when we were supposed to come out, and everything happens for a reason.
Now, you went solo, but you started playing with your sister. Now, what was that like? Because you're twins, and twins think a lot alike.
Well, my sister believed she wanted to do this. I knew she didn't. I knew it was something and I had been doing it now for years professionally. She was coming in completely green. It wasn't a good thing to do, but it was something I did. It was a family decision, and unfortunately, it was the end of my career in the business. But, it was a mistake. But, that's just what happens in life. But my sister, she's a great gal, and she still feels bad about it, and I wish she wouldn't. And anyway, then I got clean and sober and became a drug counselor and wrote a book that what spawned the Runaways movie. I got married to Robert Hayes, Airplane, and we have a beautiful son. He's 28 years old now, and we divorced after 7 years, and I became a wood carver. And now I'm made a record, and we're already writing for our second album with Brie. And I think the most amazing thing about this project is, like I said, I wanted out, and I felt like, I'd made a record with Matt Sorum for Blackheart, which they shelved for 9 years, and I just was done. I was so upset and angry about that. I didn't understand why they did that. Kenny was my manager, and it made no sense to me. And so what this record proves to me is that there's always another chance.
Right.
People that feel like their lives are over and that it's just done, and it's so not true. It's false. All you have to do is just be open to change, and the change comes. It's pretty miraculous. And I couldn't work with a better person than Brie, because she's gone through the same things I've gone through with other female musicians. She's such a team player as I am. And we look after each other, and we trust each other, and we love what we do together. We can't wait to get on stage, because even though she's a fantastic drummer, she's a great front person. All you got to do is look at a video of her and Carly Simon on stage. No, it's not Carly Simon. Shoot, it's iconic gal. And of course, I just had, when you get to be 59, all of a sudden your brain goes blank. But she's just a great front person. So the thing is that the majority of the show she'll be out front with me, and then she gets to show off her great drumming.
Now, how is your writing?
No, it's Carole King. If you look at a video with Carole King and Brie Darling, actually it was Brie Howard at the time, you'll see what a fantastic front person she is. She held her own with Carole King and just blew my mind. So everything that she and I have ever wanted to do, we are going to make happen together. Now, and that is the blessing of all this.
Now, how has your writing style changed? Do you have a focus for, this, you did originals for this, and I don't know if you said you're going to work on the next album, which I don't know if it will be covers or originals, but how do you write these days?
It'll be mostly originals.
Where do you find your writing from? I mean, from just your life experiences at this point, or does it come from?
Always my life experience, and Brie as well. That's the only pool of any kind of emotion that I can draw from is my life experience and how I feel. I wouldn't even know any other way.
Now, how is the tour? Do you have any dates set to tour, or are you working on that now?
Oh, we just signed with TKO. Great booking agent. Of course, this album came out late in the game. So with Dave Schultz on tour with Berlin, and also we've asked Nick Mayberry, who has worked on the Blackheart record on Boulevards of Splendor, and he toured with me all 4 U.S. tours. I love him. He is exceptional. He's just off the map. Amazing guitar player. He's going to do our first show with us. And then he's on tour as well. So when they get back, we'll go into rehearsal. We're going to rehearse while the two of them are gone. And then they're such professionals. We only need a couple rehearsals to be ready to hit the road. So right now we're just feeling it out. We just signed with TKO, so we've got time to fine tune this show, because it's got to be great. I mean, I've got my ideas of I want to come out and fire up the chainsaw.
That's awesome.
Well, yeah, because I mean, we're having a box built by Roger Hallis, who is just fantastic. I mean, this guy did all the jewelry for Aquaman. He's doing Aquaman 2. He's been my dear friend for, gee whiz, almost 30 years. And he's building this box that almost looks like an old ship that's going to have all kinds of lights in it. And, of course, we're going to have wood plate. And I'm going to carve our names in cursive, I think in 30 seconds, with the lights shooting out of the box. Of course, we can only do that. Some places will not allow it, but while Brie is playing a great beat as the band starts, I mean, we're just going to utilize everything we've learned in our years on this planet into this show.
Well,
just fun stuff.
People must be excited because if you go to Blue Alon Records, your pre-order with the VIP meet and greet bundle is sold out.
Is that right?
Yeah, I'm on the website right now, and you have the T-shirts and the pre-order of the limited edition single, and the pre-order of the VIP meet and greet bundle is sold out already. It has a blue sold out to it. So you got to be excited about that because people are digging this and they're getting excited.
Well, that is so neat. And, I did not know that. Thanks for telling me. We are also going to make sure that anyone that buys a bundle, any place we tour, if they have done that they get a free meet and greet with that ticket. So, and a photo with Brie and I. So we want to extend that to anyone that wants to be a part of a meet and greet wherever we play. So, and we do plan to tour a lot.
That's awesome. Now, do you plan to shoot any videos?
I'm sorry?
Do you plan to do any videos for your song? Because, I know videos aren't as big as they used to be, but people still watch them, especially I'm 55. I'll watch a video of a band all the time. Do you guys plan to do videos at all?
Are you talking about, well, we've got a video coming out for our next single, which is Do It Again, the Kinks song Do It Again. We've got a video of the recording and also shooting the album cover, which the album cover is just getting so much press and people are just love that cover. And so that comes out here next month. And then, all we want to do is concentrate on the show, not thinking about any live videos as of yet. But that, of course, will come into play eventually, sure.
Well, I want to thank you for taking time to talk to me today, Cherie. Very excited about the album, and I love the fact that we both call them albums, because I can't call it anything else. I can't call it a cassette. I can't call it a CD. I grew up with albums, so I call them albums. But now
yeah, me too, Super, and it's just been just a pleasure to talk to you.
And you have a great day, and you're on Facebook at Cherie Currie Official. Are you on Twitter at all?
You know what? I do have a Twitter account, but it's not official. And, I just really, I don't know why. I don't even have an Instagram or anything like that. I guess I got to get with the times.
When you're on the road, you got to do that because people love seeing road.
Screaming, right, Cooper? Kicking and screaming into the time.
Exactly. Well, I want to thank you, people. So please go check out Cherie. Check out our new album. You're going to love it. I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guest. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, and take your vitamins. And I'll talk to you guys next time.